JoAnn, thank you so much for being part of Ask the Latina, and it's great to have you here. You're here because you're one of Latinas, or only 2% of Latinas are in higher positions, and you've attained that, and it's an honor to have someone that we can see. Not too many Latinas will be able to see you, but with this website they'll be able to see you and learn from you, which is something that we're really glad to do, and we're happy that you're available to do this too. What I want to start with is your background. So I want to know, how did you start out? Where did you grow up? Some of your challenges you had. How was your journey? So if you can just start with where you grew up or where you're from, your heritage, where your family's from. So first question is, tell us about yourself and where your family was from and where you grew up.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. As I reflect on my journey, pretty humble beginnings. We're from Southwest Detroit. On one side, first generation Mexican American, second generation. Both of my parents are high school dropouts. In fact, my mother obtained her GED the same year I graduated from the University of Notre Dame with my undergrad. So pretty incredible. We stayed in Southwest Detroit till I was about 8th grade, and then we moved. But it's funny, your family thinks that when you leave the barrio, you've left everything. We really just moved to another part of Detroit, as my father was able to earn a little bit more money. I think for me, the pivotal moment was that focus on education. Early on, when I was very young, somehow my mother found Head Start. So I don't know what it was for my parents, but they both knew that education was really going to be the key to shifting the paradigm for our family. And somehow I had an aptitude as well. So they put me into Head Start. I did well in school. And, my father, especially when we moved, he made sure that we stayed in good schools. He invested in a Catholic education for us. In fact, my father died very young, and we found in his financials that he had borrowed money so that we could go to Catholic schools.
Wow.
That's how important it was to him. And they just continued to stress that throughout my entire life. And fortunately, with that aptitude, it just worked. And so, I say part of finding Notre Dame was luck. I went to a high school in Dearborn. I took the bus there from Detroit, and the guidance counselor was okay. And so I had applied to every school in Michigan, and a kid sitting next to me knew a little bit more than I did about colleges, and he was applying to this school called Notre Dame. I looked into it, it made sense, and when I got accepted, I evaluated all of our options and decided that was a good fit for me. And I should say we decided it was a good fit for us. I think with Hispanic families that it's never just a decision for the kid, it's a decision for the family. And so I went to Notre Dame. It was the school that offered the most prestige for me, the best programs for me, and it was affordable. But when I say affordable, I didn't get a full ride to Notre Dame. I had full rides to other schools. I still had to borrow money and work. I worked in the dining hall at Notre Dame. But I have no regrets. So I think that was the transforming moment for me. Notre Dame opened doors. Notre Dame taught me how to work in a world that I would never have known had I simply stayed in Detroit. And I say that cautiously, because I still think that if you go to local schools, you can create opportunities. It's just a lot more difficult. I think Notre Dame pivoted me a lot quicker than maybe other kids might get those opportunities. Great example, I ended up my first job out of undergrad moving to New York. Why? Because the CFO from Chase Manhattan Bank had gone to Notre Dame, and he came and recruited. My second job when I graduated from Notre Dame Law School, went back to New York. Why? Because the partner had gone to Notre Dame. My most recent hire at DTE Energy, the CEO, COO, and general counsel all went to Notre Dame. I'm not saying that's why I got hired, but I'm sure it didn't hurt. And so, I think that there were a lot of important things along the way but a lot of that focus was on my education, my pedigree, and all that I learned along the way. With education being most critical, and then seizing upon every opportunity that was presented to me. You know, my father taught me early on that you had to be fearless. I think often when I meet young Latinos in the community, I think what holds us back is fear, right? If I were going to describe myself, it's fearless, right? I mean, I'm afraid inside. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Let's not kid ourselves. A lot of things scare me, but I don't let the world know that, right? And I don't let it stop me from trying to achieve anything that I want to achieve.
That's good. Now, it's one thing that's very important, and tell me how this worked for you, because you're right. Too many families Latinas don't want to leave their families and tend to stay closer to home, even for college. But making a difference and going to a college or going to Notre Dame or Harvard or all that is very important, because we have to strive that high up to those colleges that are very, and that are out there for us too. We feel like we can't reach those, or sometimes, or is it, do you think it's because we don't want to leave the family? But yet we have to do that, and there's sometimes where family members do make an influence to that Latina, saying, I don't want you to go too far, or whatever. So you let's say you overcame that. I'm sure that your family was thinking, oh, it's kind of far, but you knew that you needed to do that, or was it different? I mean, because
I think we knew we needed to do it.
Okay.
So yeah, I could have gone to Michigan. I was accepted to Michigan and Eastern and all these other schools, and Wayne State, closer proximity to our home in Detroit. But when I evaluated the prestige, when we evaluated it, it wasn't just my decision. Somehow, you know, I was reflecting on it even as I was coming here today, and I thought about my dad. Just, you know, kind of an average guy, came from a very large traditional Hispanic family, but unfortunately a little dysfunctional, you know, having typical socioeconomic challenges, but so smart, because he knew that in order for us to change, right, and shift our socioeconomic status as a family, that we had to do something different and something big. And something big. I always joke, I'm like, I think he was more proud that I graduated from Notre Dame than I was, right? So for us, we agreed, right? They never said, you need to stay home. There was never any of that in my house, but I do see it. I sit with our young people, and I see it all the time. And so if a Latina has a little fear, the family feeds into it a little bit, right? Yeah. And so somebody has to step into it, either the Latina or the family, and be a little brave and say, how are we going to achieve the most? What is going to give us the biggest opportunity? And it might be a local school. I'm not going to dismiss that. But we really have to evaluate our options, right? We have to evaluate our options. I think the other part of this, though, is we start to think about choosing those big schools, Harvard, you know, the Ivies, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, all of these really great, powerful schools that carry power and prestige when you graduate from them, is choosing the course of study when we go there. That's the other strategic component that I think sometimes gets lost with first-generation kids. It does. You know, I work with a number of students in Detroit. We have a summer internship program that's focused on Hispanics and African Americans, and I cannot tell you the number of our students that are sociology majors, criminal justice majors, right, pre-law, all good majors, so please don't misunderstand me. But when you come from poverty, when you come from nothing, I'll tell you, my decision to major in accounting was pretty simple. I couldn't graduate with loans and be poor. I couldn't repay those loans with a sociology degree. Right. I could not. It wasn't possible. So what did I choose? I didn't even know what, I had never met an accountant in my life. Wasn't even sure what an accountant did. But I looked, somebody had on, I think on the career board, it said, these jobs pay so much when you graduate. And guess what? They have 90% job placement. that's how I chose my major. You know, and there's a great debate over how to choose these majors, right? People say that you should, you know, attend college for the pursuit of academic, you know, intellectualism. I would argue for first generations, we have to do it for economics, right? And for most of us, this is not just my personal economics, but it's the economics of our family. I sat with a young man, I had worked with them through DACA.
Yeah.
And I had worked with them, and he said, you know, he's a really smart young man getting a 4.0 at the school that he's attending. And he said, you know, I'm looking at criminal law. And I said, you know, I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. I did. I said, I spent a summer with the migrant farm workers and a summer with public defenders in Washington, D.C. And when I graduated, knew I could make $26,000 a year, and I had piles of loans. I had to make an economic decision. And I will tell you that today, I can do more for the Hispanic community from my office on the 24th floor and all the resources that I have because of what I've achieved at my corporate level than I ever would have done if I had simply been my criminal defense attorney for my entire career. Now that's just me, and I'm cautious as I say that because we do need great criminal attorneys, and we do need people who are going to work in those areas, right? But I think we need to also think about those economic decisions, right?
Yes,
right?
definitely.
So again, these are all decisions that you have to look at more holistically, right? Overcoming fear and really thinking about those practical implications.
Excellent. That's true. You mentioned DACA, and that's great. So you're a mentor in a way, right, for students. And DACA is really difficult because some states, they don't allow them to have a driver's license. You know, I'm not sure if that's okay here in Michigan, but they have a challenge, and they really need that opportunity. So it's great that you're a mentor. How did you come about becoming a mentor for someone who's in DACA?
You know, I have great friends and colleagues that I work with in the Hispanic community in Detroit, and a good friend of mine said, I'm going to work on this project, JoAnn, will you join me? And didn't hesitate. I said, sure, what do you need? And before I knew it, we were partnering, and I was reviewing them before we sent them to the lawyer. I'm a tax lawyer, I'm not an immigration lawyer, so I didn't want to be the final sign-off, but I was happy to try and save some of those dollars. And so I reviewed all of the applications, and I worked with the kids as we prepared them. And so through the course of that time, I was able to meet a number of the young people and really find some of those great shining stars and say, you know, especially these kids, you know, they came to this country without anyone asking them whether or not they wanted to be here. So real innocent bystanders, and they really needed extra assistance. And I remember telling several of them, when you get your social security number and your card, you call me, because we run a program in the summer. You're ineligible to apply right now, but once you get your work permit, you're eligible. And we want to have people like you in the program. And so it was just kind of this natural fit. I think it's important. Part of what I believe is that, and my father taught me this long ago, it doesn't matter what you achieve, right? My father gave me an opportunity, right? An opportunity. And if all I did was earn a living, then I had not fulfilled the obligations of that opportunity, right? And so he's not here to watch or tell me, but it still sets with me that it is my obligation now to pay it forward, right? And I try to do it in whatever way possible, and sometimes it's in larger ways, and sometimes it's in smaller ways, like really just reviewing the applications and meeting with the students.
It's fantastic. Now, if someone came in and they were a student and they are interested in going into finance, or more accounting, what would be some of the things that you would prepare them with? Some of the challenges, things, what would you tell them that they should prepare for? Let's say they're still in high school, and it's something they're considering because they saw you or they saw someone and they were inspired. Do you have a message for them?
So for me, I always, in fact, I encourage everyone to enter the accounting field, but especially the tax field, because that's what I do, because I think there are large opportunities of employment. I also believe that even in economic downturns, there continue to be great areas of opportunity for employment. So it's one of those, I think, areas that you can invest in and feel secure. So what do I tell them? I tell them to study hard, but my message for all of our young people is that you have to do well in school. It's the message that they don't hear enough, right? Work hard, be your best, whatever that looks like, right? And to take your studies seriously, right? And to take the college prep courses, right? And I think that's going to be important no matter what area of study you're going to go into. So I don't think there's anything unique for the accounting or finance space other than, stay the course, get good grades. It's competitive. Most of the good business schools, even at an undergraduate level, are competitive. So I know the University of Notre Dame and the Ross, as well as the Ross School of Business at Michigan, you have to apply to those business colleges. You don't just get in, which means that you have to have good grades, right? The other part I would tell them is that when the first day that you enter college, you have to do well. It is not optional. And I know that you're afraid, and I know that it's hard, and I know that we're by ourselves, but that you also have to seek out help when it doesn't work, right? College is different than high school. Very different. I know for me, I graduated top in my class, and then I was at school with people who were 100 times brighter than I was. 100 times brighter than I was. When I started seeing the B's and the C's, I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I really did. It was something unusual to me. And thankfully, it was a small enough school that people reached out to me and said, you know what, we have a tutoring program. We have a program that can help you. You don't seem to be understanding this. That doesn't happen everywhere. And so my message to these kids is you have to advocate for yourselves. You have to seek out help. You have to do well, right?
That's right.
The one thing I can't stress to all of our students is that grades matter. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you that you're going to be a failure if you have had a misstep, because you won't be. But your life will be a whole lot easier if right out of the gate you're observant of those grades and that you seek out help as you see things start to diminish before you get the F or the D or even the C. You start to look for help because there'll be early warning signs that you're not doing well.
Right. And when you mean help, what kind of help would you suggest for them to go look for?
I'd go to their professor. Their professor, all these professors have office hours. Most of our students never speak to them. Every college, the College of Business or their freshman year of studies will also have advisors. Go see your advisor, right? And then ask for help. Say that, do you have a tutoring program? Whether it's a formal tutoring or a peer tutoring, there are people who will talk to you about the coursework that you're undertaking. And even if you need it every day, they will help you. And most of it's free. That's the interesting part. Most of this support is free, but most of our students don't advocate for themselves, and so they don't request help until they get the F.
Yeah.
And it's hard to earn your way back from an F. It's very hard.
Especially in college. It's
very
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Great. Well, I think that concludes everything. You did awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, for being part of this website. And
oh, no, my pleasure.
You're going to be our spotlight as we spotlight a Latina achiever every month, and you'll be there next month.
Well, thank you.
So, and we're excited. And you've said so much in this interview that it's going to touch a lot of lives, and your father will be very proud of you because you are passing it forward.
Oh, thank you.
And we want a lot more Latinas to emulate that and be like you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank
You're beautiful.
you.